Jin-Woo's fist pumped the air the moment the dungeon cleared. He had done it, and more importantly, the final ingredient he needed was finally within reach. He unwrapped the bandages from his hand and reached toward the light sparkling from the corpse of Balan, the Demon Monarch. The system notifications stacked up one after another. The Demon Monarch's ring, sword, daggers, horns, and at last, the one that mattered, purified blood of the Demon Monarch. He shouted for joy. He called up the craft window immediately. All 3 ingredients were listed, the word craftable blinking at him like a green light. He didn't hesitate. Craft. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Then the system delivered a message that made his stomach drop. The rate of success and item quantity would vary based on the crafter's intelligence level. He stared at it. For a fraction of a second, the memory surfaced. How long he had treated intelligence as an afterthought, something for scholars and mages, not for a hunter who lived and died by raw physical output. The thought that he might have stood here with the right ingredients and the wrong build was genuinely unpleasant. But the moment he had understood the stat's true reach, how quietly it shaped outcomes he had been attributing to other factors entirely, he had corrected course without hesitation, redirecting every available ability point into it after the demon battles. No half measures, no hedging, all of it. And now, with the countdown ticking towards 0, and his mother's recovery balanced on 6 unfinished bottles, he was more grateful for that decision than he had words for. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Crafting is complete. Crafting was successful. You have acquired 6 items, Elixirs of Life. 6. He threw both arms in the air. Then he noticed something odd. The bottle of purified blood of the Demon Monarch was still in his hand, only slightly depleted. When he checked his inventory, the spring water from the Echo Forest had run to 0, the only ingredient fully consumed. The world tree fragment was just chipped. The blood was barely touched. It meant he could craft more Elixirs of Life as long as he obtained more spring water from the Echo Forest. He smiled. Not bad news at all. Iron dragged something enormous into view, the fallen body of Kaisel, the winged dragon Balan had ridden. Black smoke curled from the corpse. Jin-Woo held out his arm. Arise. The extraction was quick and clean. A shadowy mass surged from the dragon's shadow, then bowed its head before its new master. Please choose a name. He thought for a moment. Kaisel. The dragon reared its head and roared into the air. He recalled all his soldiers into shadow and turned to the quest completion message. Collect demon souls, finished. The rewards included a runestone of the highest rank. He squeezed the stone without even thinking about it. Black energy swirled around him and was absorbed. Skill, Shadow Exchange, Leave Bought 1. The caster may switch locations with a designated shadow soldier. Once used, you may activate it again only after a 3-hour cooldown period. Instant teleportation. He had soldiers patrolling his neighborhood. One quick test couldn't hurt. Shadow Exchange. The shadow swallowed him whole, and he was standing in the alleyway near his apartment. The flickering streetlight, the leaning pushcart, an electrical pole with torn flyers on it. He stared at his own shadow underfoot, completely normal, as if nothing had happened. He tapped it cautiously with his foot. When the skill had activated, his feet had sunk into it like stepping into still water. Now there was nothing there at all. That happened in an instant. He checked the cooldown. He swallowed hard. He had maintained concentration from the moment his shadow swallowed him, and from inside that darkness, time had seemed to slow, and yet the transit itself had been instantaneous. One moment, the demon's castle. The next, this alley. No sensation of travel, no gap between the two. He tried to work through the tactical implications, and found he couldn't quite reach the end of them. Offensive positioning, extraction, escaping situations that should have been inescapable, placing soldiers in advance and retrieving them, or himself, on demand. The 3-hour cooldown was a real constraint, but that window would shorten at higher skill levels. He had never received a runestone of the highest caliber before. Now he understood why the designation existed. Shadow Exchange. Depending on how he used it, the possibilities were endless. He checked the time, 10 o'clock at night. No time to lose. He summoned Kaisel from his shadow. Huge wings exploded from the ground, and a lizard the size of a truck fully emerged in the narrow alleyway. Jin-Woo climbed on without hesitation. Let's go. Kaisel launched them both into the night sky. A certain meeting at the Hunters Association ran late into the night. President Go's head snapped toward the window mid-presentation. Didn't you feel that? Manager Wu looked at him blankly. The president had sensed an immense wave of mana from somewhere far away, fleeting but unmistakable. He turned his attention back to the Jeju Island briefing, making a mental note to follow up with Hunter Jin-Woo Sung. At a neighborhood food stall, former S-rank hunter Byung-gu Min felt it too. His chopsticks paused in midair. Across the table, Yoon-ho Baek was staring in the same direction. Did you feel that too? I may be retired, but my rank hasn't changed, Byung-gu said. Yoon-ho turned back and drained his glass. He was going to Jeju Island regardless. He'd called this meeting just to say goodbye in case he didn't come back. You saw how Yoon-suk died, Byung-gu said. All the more reason to go back, Yoon-ho replied. Byung-gu gave up arguing when Yoon-ho was already some distance away, walking with the expression of a man who couldn't wait to smash the ant bastards to a pulp. He shook his head. At the hospital, Jin-Woo used Ruler's hand to slide the curtain aside and open the window from outside. Kaisel dissolved into shadow as he stepped in. His mother lay exactly as she always did, pale, still, her neck and nape carrying the burn scars he had given her by accident at a bathhouse when he was small. He had filled a scoop with scalding water and poured it over her from behind. She had shielded Jinnah with her own body and hadn't made a sound until the other ladies screamed. Even then, she'd grabbed his shoulders and asked, "Jin-Woo, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" He had never forgotten that. He uncorked one of the wooden bottles. His hands, steady enough to fight the Demon Monarch, would not stop shaking. He forced a long breath. Then, carefully, he supported her head with his arm and let the elixir pass her lips a drop at a time. He waited. Nothing. Nothing. And ah! Kyung-hee took in a deep breath, like someone surfacing from water. Color flooded back into her face. Jin-Woo could not move. Her eyes opened slowly, found him, and she blinked. Who? Is that you, Jin-Woo? He nodded. How long have I been here? 4 years. Her face showed the shock, then the recovery. What about Jinnah? Is she okay? He bit his lip to keep from crying. Yeah, she's fine. She exhaled with relief, and he thought, even now, even right now. She reached out and took his hand. Thank you, son. You kept your promise. Yeah, he managed. It must have been hard for you, wasn't it? And that was the end of his composure. Dr. Lee, chief physician of Seoul Ilshin Hospital, was stunned. A patient with eternal sleep disease had awoken, unprecedented. He was already calculating the press release when Dr. Choi stopped him cold. The patient's guardian was an S-rank hunter. Dr. Lee's eyebrows twitched once, then settled. Discharge the patient immediately. Of course. What would anyone get out of irritating an S-rank hunter? Gina arrived in tears before she even reached the door. Mom? Mom? And their mother threw her arms open wide. Jin-Woo stepped back and watched his sister collapse into that embrace, crying with the abandon of someone who had been holding it in for years. Kyung-hee patted her back steadily and shook her head at Jin-Woo when he moved to intervene. He stepped back again. The sun was out. He checked his phone later and found news headlines with photos of Kaisel. Magic beast spotted in skies of downtown Seoul. Hunters Association fails to respond. He grimaced. Someone had photographed a giant winged lizard at night, and the internet had opinions. He resolved to be more careful going forward. President Go called not long after. Jin-Woo stepped outside the room to answer. Hunter Sung, may we speak in person? Something in the president's tone told him this wasn't about the dragon. At the Hunters Association, he watched a CCTV video on a wall-sized monitor, a quiet rural road, a speeding car, and then a black figure materializing in its path. The car was lifted one-handed and thrown to the ground. The driver was pulled from the wreck and devoured headfirst. 300 people killed by a single ant. The president's voice was quiet. We are going to Jeju Island to get rid of the ants once and for all. We need your help, Hunter Sung. On the way out, Jin-Woo paused. He could sense something, mana, restrained but present, leaking from somewhere nearby. S-rank hunters training in the association gymnasium. The president confirmed it and noted with surprise that Jin-Woo had detected them through walls the association's own equipment couldn't penetrate. The gym smelled of exertion and suppressed power. In the center, A shirtless Yoonho Baek was sparring with the massive Dongwook Ma, guild master of the Fame Guild, a sumo wrestler billed in a judo uniform. They looked like they were enjoying themselves. The other Korean S-rank hunters watched from the sidelines. Ryuji Goto stood off to the side in civilian clothes, fighting back a yawn. These are the best Korea has to offer? They were terrible. No, they were pathetic. Terrible was an objective evaluation. Pathetic had some sympathy mixed in. If Korea's safety rested in these hands, would it not be simpler to have Japan assume responsibility for it entirely? There was one exception among them, a single candidate who rose above the rest, Hain Cha. But she was only comparable to Japan's high-rank hunters, not its elite. Korea was a small country with a small population, and its strongest active hunter was a dying old man who could no longer take the field. Gun-Hee-Go was on par with Japan's best, which made his condition all the more unfortunate for the nation he'd spent his life protecting. Ryuji had seen what he came to see. If we withdraw during the attack, they won't even last 5 minutes. He had concluded as much and turned to leave when someone entered the gym and his eyebrows twitched. Ryuji had been here to assess the Koreans. His conclusions were not generous. Then Jin-Woo walked in, and something changed. Ryuji couldn't sense him approaching. He still couldn't sense him now, looking right at him. "He's a mage-class hunter," the translator said. Ryuji pulled up the association website to verify. Jin-Woo Sung, S-rank, mage class. He looked up from the screen. "Will you spar with me?" The translator paled. Jin-Woo looked at Ryuji for a moment, taking the measure of the man, then replied through the translator. He'd accept, on the condition that Ryuji intended to give it his all. Ryuji's smile disappeared. He agreed. Ryuji launched the first punch without ceremony, aimed directly at the space Jin-Woo's head occupied. He missed. Jin-Woo had moved his head aside and stepped back. That was not luck. Ryuji pressed forward, attacking without pause, and none of it connected. Each strike missed by a hair or was blocked. Cold sweat formed on his forehead. He was being led. Hain, watching from the edge of the crowd, understood before anyone else. Jin-Woo wasn't holding on. He was inviting Ryuji to keep attacking, drawing out his patterns, matching his power level to Ryuji's precisely, the behavior of someone several times stronger choosing not to end things. Yoonho's pupils had gone vertical, glowing yellow, his whole body trembling. A hunter who can get stronger, I was right. Then Ryuji's control cracked. He swung with killing intent, aiming for Jin-Woo's eyes. The nails grazed his cheek. A system warning pinged, not the urgent kill quest, just a warning. Jin-Woo's expression went cold. He caught Ryuji's wrist. One hand. Ryuji tried to pull free and couldn't. Jin-Woo's arm drew back, aimed at Ryuji's face. And then Yoonho and Hain were there, physically restraining him, Yoonho's hand on his shoulder, Hain's grip on his wrist, both of them holding on as hard as they could. Jin-Woo looked at them. They looked back. He exhaled and let go. Ryuji withdrew several steps, massaging his bruised wrist. He left the gym without a word. The translator ran after him. In the corridor outside, Ryuji made a phone call. "President Matsumoto, there's an incredible hunter here in Korea. Better than you. Possibly." A beat of silence. "What's the hunter's name?" Jin-Woo Sung. The president checked the finalized Korean roster. Jonggin Choi, Dongwook Mak, Hain Cha, Taegyu Lim, Byung-gu Min. There's no Jin-Woo Sung on this list. I see. Back inside, Jin-Woo watched the sparring session resume with fresh eyes. Jonggin had mentioned that Yoonho transformed into something unrecognizable when he went all out, that he became, in a word, monstrous. Some of the highest rank hunters had abilities like that. Unique, singular, difficult to categorize. Jin-Woo supposed his own abilities would be described in exactly the same terms by anyone watching from the outside. He found himself smiling at the thought. What was the real difference, after all, between a person who transformed into a monster and a person who summoned them? Other people would find him just as fascinating as he found President Baek. That seemed fair. He watched the two men spar and tracked every blow without effort. "They're slow." He didn't say it out loud. Dongwook was first to approach. "Oh ho, you sparred with the great Ryuji Goto and came out of it with just a scratch on your cheek." He squeezed Jin-Woo's forearm admiringly. "My guild needs more people with muscles like these. Would you consider joining the Fame Guild?" Jonggin quietly pointed out that Jin-Woo was a mage class. Dongwook blinked. "What?" Taegu Lim made his own attempt shortly after, with similar results. Yunho watched all of it from a distance, without approaching. His heart was still racing. He had theorized about this, argued for the possibility in his own mind, but seeing it confirmed in front of him was something different entirely. An actual reawakened being whose abilities could grow without limit. What would Jin-Woo's net worth be, in terms of raw potential, 5 years from now? 10? Yuno couldn't begin to calculate it. That was exactly why he hadn't joined the scramble. If I were Jin-Woo, I too wouldn't join a guild. Trying to recruit him directly was a lost cause. And more than that, it was the wrong approach entirely. A hunter at that level didn't need a guild. A guild needed him. But there were other ways to build a working relationship that didn't require Jin-Woo to give anything up. Ways that started with trust rather than a contract. Yunho had been thinking about one of them for the past 10 minutes. It was time to execute Plan B. His phone buzzed before he could move. Several days passed. Kyunghye came home. The door opened to an apartment that Jina had left in a state of cheerful chaos during the weeks Jin-Woo was inside the demon's castle. Clothes on every surface, dishes in the sink. Kyunghye laughed when she saw it, then immediately started cleaning. Jin-Woo tried to stop her. She insisted. The three of them cleaned together, and as the apartment began to shine, the empty feeling that had haunted it for years began to lift. That night, Jin-Woo slept without worry for the first time in a very long time, and woke to the smell of breakfast. Kyunghye was chopping green onions in the kitchen. She turned to look at him. "Did you sleep well, son?" He smiled without being fully awake yet. "Yes, I did." He sat with his family through a morning TV segment about the Korea-Japan alliance and the ant situation. When the coverage mentioned that all 21 Japanese S-rank hunters were going, but no Jin-Woo Sung, he quietly turned the TV off. He'd made his decision when the president asked him. "I can't go." His mother had just woken up. There was nothing in the world more important than this. The internet was less understanding. The comments ranged from confused to contemptuous. Once an E-rank, always an E-rank. All 21 Japanese S-rank hunters, plus even a retired Korean one, but no Jin-Woo Sung? He's really going to be like that after becoming an S-rank? So humiliating. He was mindful of Jinna seeing this kind of thing. He personally didn't care. He put the phone face down on the table. He'd live with it. Jinho called with the excited news of a guild office space. Large, clean, newly built in a great location near Jin-Woo's apartment. Jinho had already mentally furnished it and populated it with 100 hunters. Jin-Woo reminded himself that telling Jinho he planned to be the guild's only active raider could wait until after the lease was signed. "Sure," he said. "Oh, and someone was asking for you, boss. A foreigner, spoke English, left a note. A hotel room number, a phone number. In Korea until the 17th, 3 days away, no name." That evening, a shadow soldier on neighborhood patrol sent him an alert. Dark alley, flickering streetlight. A university student named Jim In-eun had taken a wrong turn. The man who'd been following her had let her pass, then waited around the corner with a kitchen knife. "If you scream, you're dead." She was frozen. He moved toward her, and a hand shot from the darkness and caught the blade bare-handed. The serial killer ran. Jin-Woo followed. The man turned in a narrow lot, produced an ice pick, and drove it into Jin-Woo's chest. It didn't go in. "Why are you doing this?" Jin-Woo asked. "Because it's fun. When I see people weaker than me, I have this intense desire to." He couldn't finish the sentence. His left ankle gave out with a sound like a snapping cord. Then his right. He went down screaming, both ligaments severed clean. Jin-Woo fished out his wallet, read the ID, called an ambulance, put everything back in his trembling hands. "Give yourself up by midnight tomorrow, if you want to live." He assigned a shadow soldier to the man's shadow with a matching set of instructions, and walked away. He walked home under the moon, thinking about shadow exchange. Every time he used it, it surprised him with its versatility. Tomorrow the Korea-Japan mission would begin. He hoped they all came back. In the training hall of the Hunters Association of Japan, Ryuji stood at the center of the room while 3 S-rank hunters charged him simultaneously. He put them all down without effort. He was in perfect condition. Yet every time his thoughts drifted to Jin-Woo Sung, the frustration returned unbidden. He shook it off. Jin-Woo wasn't on the Korean roster. The plan would proceed without interference. When Korea lost all its S-rank hunters on Jeju Island, they'd have no choice but to accept Japan's leadership of the peninsula's defense. What could Jin-Woo Sung alone do against that? Ryuji smiled quietly in the moonlit gym. The executive director of a broadcasting company bowed deeply to the cameraman, an A-rank hunter he'd hired to film the mission. The company had spent half its annual budget securing the transmission rights. A live broadcast of the raid, with a 10-minute signal delay to allow for editorial control, with a potential audience of hundreds of millions, ratings of 70–80% were possible. The foreign syndication rights alone would return a profit. The director would have gladly kneeled if the man asked. Everything is riding on this for our network. President Go had approved the broadcast not for the money. He divided the transmission fees among the participating hunters, but because he wanted to give the Korean people something to believe in after 3 failed missions. A documented moment of victory, captured live. The cameraman understood the stakes. He'd done his research. He finished checking his head-mounted camera, chosen specifically so it wouldn't hinder his movements, nodded once, and left. The director bowed again at his back. The helicopter lifted off in silence. Even Dongwook Ma, normally the loudest person in any room, sat with a quiet expression. The cameraman ran his final equipment check. Byung-gu Min, the retired S-rank healer who had come anyway, traded jokes with Yoonho back to cut through the tension. Hain turned to Yoonho. "Did you meet with Jin-Woo by any chance?" Yoonho shook his head. Hain looked back at the window. "Oh, never mind." The cabin fell quiet again. Then Dongwook leaned forward without a word and pointed at the window. One by one, the others turned to look. Jeju Island appeared below. Not the island any of them remembered from photographs or news reports. The green hills, the tangerine farms, the coastline hotels. What appeared through the glass was something else entirely. The ground was blackened in vast, spreading patches, as if the earth itself had been scorched from within. The tree lines were gone. Where villages had once stood, there was only scarred terrain, dark and motionless, stretching to the horizon like a wound that hadn't closed. Nobody spoke. The helicopter continued its descent, and the silence inside was total. Not the comfortable silence of people at rest, but the silence of people who had just understood, fully and without ambiguity, what they had come here to face. "Showtime," Dongwook said quietly. It wasn't a joke this time.